Excuse me, Chair Ty?
Yes?
Maybe you could request, since we have so many people on tonight, maybe you could request the people that they start off with their mics muted. I noticed several are open mics.
Okay. Yes, that's a reasonable request. Thank you.
Deborah's here.
Oh, good.
Very good.
Very good. So I've called the meeting to order, and could we have a roll call, please?
Director Radek?
Here.
Director Lohman?
Here.
Director Clark?
You're muted.
You're muted, Director Clark.
Here.
Director Penrose?
Here.
Director Slater Carter?
Yes, I'm here.
Chair Dye?
Here. All right, Kishan, do you have some announcements, and can you introduce the members of the staff who are here?
Yes, I can do that. I have with me Tim Costello, Supervisor of Treatment and Operations. I have George Evans, a Finance Officer from the Accounts Department, and I have Susan Turby from an Administration Department. And of course, I have Jeremy Ungrais, our General Counsel. And this is me, Kishan Patiwadi, General Manager for SAP.
Great. Did you
That's
have
it.
any announcements or?
Not really. I haven't received any public comment or anything via email, but if anybody wants to speak.
All right. Well, the next item is public comment. Is there anyone here who wants to speak on an item that is not on the agenda? Don't see anything. All right. Moving on to the consent agenda, approving the minutes of August 23rd and the disbursements for September 13th. Anyone want to pull either of those items from the agenda? From the vote? All right. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? Okay. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Radek?
Aye.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Clark?
Aye.
Director Penrose?
Aye.
Director Slater Carter? Director Slater Carter, you're muted.
Muted.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, Chair Dye,
Yes. All right.
motion passed.
Passes. All right, moving on to regular business. First item is clarification on the presentation done by Brown and Caldwell on SAM treatment plant process and upset capacity discussion on August 23rd. We have a staff report.
Excuse me,
Yes.
is there going to be public forum?
I'm sorry?
Is there going to be public forum first?
We asked for public comment. I did. Specifically asked for public comment.
Okay, we can go back if somebody has a comment to make.
Yeah.
Well, there should be opportunities for each item on the agenda for people who wish to comment on those. They should have an opportunity to do so at that time.
I'd like to comment that the description for public comment here doesn't say that it's only for things that are not on the agenda.
But that's the rule, isn't it?
That is the rule, yes.
Yeah.
But you should at least be transparent about what the rule is, I think.
Okay. I apologize for that. I did say for items not on the agenda. And I guess in the future, perhaps we could have that written as the agenda item. Kishan, can we
Okay, yes,
amend
will
the
do.
agendas to say public comment, oral communication for items not on the agenda?
Okay,
Because that's what it's supposed to be at the beginning.
will do.
Okay, great. Anything else on that? Okay, let's move on to regular business. Item A, I read the title. Kishan, can you give us a staff report?
Sure. So during the last meeting in August, that is August 23rd, 2021, there was a presentation made by Brown and Caldwell. The gentleman Lance Salerno, who presented the entire study on the status update on the process upset. We're not going to repeat the presentation again, but I'd like to mention it that he noticed that there was an error in one of the slides, which at the end of the board meeting, he did mention that there was an error in one of the slides, and subsequently he corrected that the next day, and the entire slide with the corrected slide was up on our website. But at the request of one of the directors, it was we were asked to bring this back to the agenda tonight, and we have gentlemen from Brown and Caldwell here who have also indicated to us that that error, what was in the slide, did not impact any of the decisions what was taken that day, nor was a process study which was based on earlier modeling and study done had any effect. So we do have Brown and Caldwell here. We have Mike and Lance. So if you'd like to say a few words, Mike or Lance, the forum is yours.
Thanks, Kishan. Yeah, we got a request from Kishan to just go back and make sure that the data that was incorrect that we corrected didn't have any impacts on the recommendations we had in the study, and it did not. The data that we presented on the collection system was not used for any of the modeling or capacity assessment at the plant. We used the influence data at the front of the plant for that evaluation. So really the collection system data that was presented was for informational purposes only. We didn't make any conclusions or anything, but other than observations at that time. So it was just a mistake. Lance corrected it, and we just wanted to make sure that's clear to everybody.
Maybe it would be helpful just to mention that the mistake was that it showed that the contribution from the Princeton pump station provided 30% of the input to the plant, and in fact, it is 7.4% of what goes into the plant. And
right, a lot less.
I think it's important to just recognize that that was presented, and people may have missed the fact that there was a correction made later.
Yeah, correct. And that was clearly done and identified. So we just wanted to make sure that was understood. Lance, I didn't know if you had any additional comments that you wanted to provide.
There we go. I'm muted. No, that's about it, Mike. Thanks to Tim Costello and the plant, his plant team for pointing that out. That it just looked a little bit odd. The flow number that we presented for the one location, the Princeton pump station, which again was outside the study, but we had gotten the data a weekend before the board meeting. We tried to incorporate it, and unfortunately, there was an error on the flow number, which influenced the slide. But the concentration data was correct, and that information was amended, as Kishan pointed out. So that's all we have to say. Other than that, thank you again, Tim, for pointing that out during the presentation.
Yeah, and just to let everyone know, the corrected slide as well as the complete presentation is also a part of your packet, because somebody requested to present the corrected slide, but that's already in your packets as a separate slide as well as the complete presentation.
I see that Greg Diegas has his hand up. Would you like to speak?
Yeah, I think this is the appropriate time to ask the question that seems to be on the mind of many people, which is, are we done with the problems at the plant? I know Director Lohman reported at the water board meeting that August had been a good month, if I remember correctly, without any violations. I know Chuck Duffy of GCSD had conducted an analysis which indicated it was process problems, or process changes, I should say, not influent that was the issue. And this corrected data, I don't know. Does it mean that Princeton's not the problem? Certainly, Princeton still has per volume 50% more BOD than others, but is it so small a percentage of the overall influent that we can just all go back to work? And is this problem behind us? That's the question.
Well, to answer your question, Greg, whether the problem is behind us, whether we can just move forward, is a difficult question to answer, because we thought the problem was gone in June and it surfaced again in July. So we need to take preventive action. We need to make sure that it doesn't occur again. And therefore, those are a couple of things which you will come to know of in the next few items on the agenda. Does that answer your question, Greg? Thank you.
Looks like yes. Catherine, you have your hand up.
Thank you. Yes. I hear there are two sources or different ideas on the genesis of this problem. I'd like to hear Brown and Caldwell restate their findings for the public that's watching this. Since Chuck Duffy is the general manager of Granada Sanitary District, I know he has a lot of experience, but that was why we hired one of the top analyst agencies to take a look at this.
I think that the comment is, our scope of work was to produce a report for the improvements needed for that. So, I mean, that was done. Any of the data that we collected at the plant we used, any upstream collection system, as Kishan mentioned, it could go south tomorrow. And I don't think it would be a process change at this time. So, I mean, there's still probably something that should be looked at to get a handle on the collection system in case it comes back. I think you always have to be that. Thankfully now the plant is operating well from what I've heard. And I know that because Kishan hasn't called me up and asked for Lance in the last week. So I know that things are looking really good. So that's kind of our take right now. I know others are looking at the kind of the source control collection system. So we're not diving into that specific area at this point. We're focused within the plant. And so that still should be at least evaluated and investigated because it seems uncertain that something just disappeared that caused the plant to go south. I certainly hope that if there was some strange discharges that are not happening now, great. It's really, really difficult to pinpoint that down, but I think there should be some, circle back on just making sure that, the agency understands the discharges and continues that. So that's kind of where our support lies at this point in terms of, our closing point. So we're pretty much done with the study that we did. And so there's still more on the collection system that has to be done. We're not currently scoped to do that part of the work at this time.
I did take a look at the manager's report for last month, the one that we didn't get to at our last meeting. And you were there a lot, Lance, and working with them on process issues and trying to, they seemed to be, every day they were trying different things to get things under control. And it's great to hear that everything is, at this time, working well and seems to be under control.
It's a credit to the operations staff because just to be transparent on that, from my read of the plant's day-to-day operating reports, they're still running with some operational modifications to maintain this good quality effluent. Is that correct, Tim and Kishan?
Yeah, we're still doing chemical addition on the mixed liquor aeration basin effluent. We're using alum for a coagulant, and we're also using the polymer. And we've been having filament issues are popping up again. The oxygen uptake rate, as you saw in some of the previous process sheets we sent out to you, the oxygen uptake rate has been high. We've been having high periods where both blower cores are necessitated to keep the oxygen up at a level that's necessary for the process. So what that tells us is that the loading that we're getting, there's an organic loading that's requiring the microorganisms to work a lot harder, and they're consuming a lot more oxygen. So I'm not saying we're out of the woods at all. I'm not even going to begin to go down that road because we certainly no.
Yeah, and that's a good qualifier, okay. Tim. And that plant operations, the final quality is much improved and has been really good for the past 6 weeks, especially relative to previous months and relative to our permit limits. But the plant is still just maintaining these additional treatment steps that are ongoing, incurring additional electrical, chemical, and mechanical costs. So just, that's all.
I'm not sure a detailed delve into this is really appropriate under this agenda item, but I think what we just heard was helpful, and we appreciate it. And thank you for coming and clarifying what happened with that previous report. Anyone want to speak further on this item? All right, so moving on to item B, which is resolution 2016, fixing the time and place for regular meetings of the board of directors. And actually, I'd like to speak to this first. I put this on the agenda because I want to kind of to apologize to the community for what happened at our last meeting. It was my fault that I didn't explain the rules under which the SAM board operates. All of the SAM board members are volunteers, and they've set aside 2 meetings a month for dealing with SAM business. It was approved in, I think, 2016 that if we are to have 2 meetings a month, they would end at 9 o'clock, and that we would need to extend that if we wanted to continue past that time. And last time, because I was aware of this time constraint, I was kind of rushing people, and I apologize for that. It would have been much better if I'd explained the time constraints, because not everybody understands that. So the purpose of this item was for me to make an apology for not being clear about that. And I'm happy to take any other comment on this item, but that was my goal with this agenda item. Anyone want to make a comment? All right.
Just real quick.
Yes, Rick.
Just a quick comment, more to the future. Have we heard anything from anybody about post September 30th? And are we waiting till after the election tomorrow to hear any news from Sacramento? Or has anybody made any comments that anybody has heard about extending Zooming instead of forcing everybody to crowd into little rooms? Because I haven't heard anything. So
I have. I'll have. But by the time we do the attorney's report, hopefully I can find it. There's a piece of legislation that's pending. Although it's the end of the session, so I'm not sure how that would work. But I got an update on that a couple days ago. Let me see if I can find it.
Director Ruddick.
So AB 361 has been enrolled and is going to the governor by Assemblymember Rivas, and it is extending the time period for local and state agencies and legislative bodies to hold remote meetings, per specified requirements and conditions for a limited period of time during basically what they're calling the COVID emergency. And it's a fairly tightly circumscribed bill about under what conditions we can continue remote meetings, but it allows some flexibility for local and state agencies to continue to Zoom. Most state agencies I know could continue to hold their meetings the balance of the calendar year via Zoom. Having some beefed up noticing requirements that the public, understands what the situation is. So that's going to the governor's desk. And it seems like the governor is prepared to sign it, although there is opposition from ACLU and some other groups who feel that the noticing isn't quite stringent enough. Currently you have to identify every location where people are going to be, accessing remotely, and that's fairly onerous, but that is one of the points of contention of the groups that are opposing it. But I suspect the governor is going to sign it.
Thanks.
So sorry to jump in
That's
there,
a really good update.
Jeremy, but I thought, since the question was raised now, I would deal with it here.
Well, Director Ruddick, you knew the answer and I didn't, so that's probably a good thing. So good job.
Thank you. Director Clark.
Oh, first on that, I would be interested to poll the board and see what everyone thinks. Personally, I would like to keep Zoom meetings going, but how do people feel?
I agree.
I think we've had a lot of things that we've needed to deal with in a more timely manner than one meeting a month. So I'm willing to continue. There are 3 hands up. Are these all leftover hands, or did you want to speak again?
I'd like to continue Zoom.
Yeah, I would too. I think it's very helpful. Anyone else want to comment? Anyone from the public want to comment on this? Sorry.
Are we going to talk about the resolution 10/2016 for the time and place?
Well, that's what we're discussing. I think there is a provision in there that says we are supposed to review it, and maybe we should come back with a proper staff report and talk about changes. But I don't know if we want to go through this tonight. What are you thinking, Catherine?
Well, I'll go back to the Zoom because it's tied to this. I like being able to have more people at our meeting.
Yes.
And I'm sure it's much more comfortable for every one of our observers, guests, constituents, all of you, to be able to sit in a much more comfortable chair at some distance from your next neighbor. Sorry about the dog. That said, I remember the discussion on the 10/2016. Other than one of the things I like about Zoom is it allows people to not have to get out and drive to a meeting. That's been one of the problems in the past for folks who aren't proximate to the SAM plant, is just getting out and to be able to listen. So I will say I'm comfortable with the 7 p.m. start to the 9 p.m. End time. Because I know some people get up very, very, very early. And so it's tough to get it going too late. So I can't see reviewing it any more than we have.
All right, thank you. Clark, did you want to speak again? Your hand's
yes,
up.
about
and then Greg, I see you.
Resolution 10/26. I have a question and a couple of comments. My first comment would be to agree with Catherine that the 7 to 9 period is all right with me as long as we maintain the opportunity to add time if we're in the middle of something important and we can get the board to do that. I think that system works pretty good for us. It's okay. My question is that 10/2016 resolution mentions that how it's functioning would be reviewed in 2017. And I was an alternate at the time. So I'm asking, was that review done? And what were if so, were there any results?
Not that I know of, Director Clark, but the board, I think, decided to go for 2 meetings in one instance and said that if it's not required, we can cancel the second meeting as and when required.
Right.
They didn't decide that it'll be only 1 meeting, but they said we'll continue with 2 meetings. If we need to cancel, we can cancel one of the meetings on a case-to-case basis.
Thank you.
That's about it.
And my other comment is that if we were following Resolution 10/2016, well, we haven't been following it because I read through it and it says that closed session is listed 3rd on the agenda. And we've been consistently doing closed session at the end of the agenda. So we either should change that resolution or figure out something else to do about following it.
Well, the board could do that tonight if you're so inclined. I mean, it's on the agenda. You could make the change. You could also remove the portion about revisiting before 2017.
It's not noticed as an action item on the agenda.
Yeah, but the public understands what was going to be discussed. So in fact, it's not noticed to revise it. I think it's still adequate.
Rose? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you, Jeremy. Director
Yeah,
Felix.
I think if we just eliminate those two parts of the resolution, we'll be fine. We can always revisit the 2 times a month issue. I'm sure we will as time goes on and things get straightened out. We won't need as many meetings, I'm hoping. But I think if we leave it out of the resolution and leave out the review in 2017 and put in something like review as needed, that would take care of it.
Would it be appropriate to have a revision come back to our a subsequent meeting? Why don't we have a consensus? I don't think we need a motion for that, do we?
You don't, but the cleanest way would be to do that. Just take the direction back and then come back with a new resolution that makes that change.
Okay, I see Greg Diaguez. Did you want to speak to this?
Only to, in addition to all the other comments, which I'll endorse, mention that going back to in-person meetings at this time, given where we are with COVID, wouldn't just be irresponsible, it would be deadly. And in fact, my sense of other directors on other agencies I've talked to is that we would either have a lot of canceled meetings or a lot of resignations if we did that. So it's great to hear from Director Ruddock that the state is finally going to do something. As a citizen, I'm just shocked that they didn't do it sooner. But I think the board is going to face this decision again before the fall is out. That's just a forecast on my part. But if they extend this to the end of the year, I don't think that's going to be long enough, and we'll have to wait and see. But thanks for all.
So is it the consensus of the board that we ask staff to look at appropriate revisions to the ordinance and bring it back to us at a later date to look at?
Yes.
That's fine.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say yes. I want to add that I know Rick was on Sam before, and Debbie has been off and on. For quite a while, the closed session was held at the beginning of the meeting. And that was miserable for the audience, who had to then go out and stand around Susie's desk, and many of us brought our own dinner when I was visiting on the public.
To remove that requirement, I think is the
no. I think I would like to remove change the requirement to the end of the meeting so that the public can hear the general manager's report and all the other reports and topics for future session. I think it's more of a transparency than holding it off until the end of closed session.
Well, I think we're talking about removing the requirement that it be located at any specific time. The general practice now has indeed been to put it after those items. And it seems as if perhaps if there was an urgent item that needed to be moved up, it would be nice to have that flexibility. So I think we're just talking about taking that requirement out and coming back with something that doesn't require a specific location, but practice would continue, that it would be at the end.
I would suggest that we move it to the end and add an except that says in the case of an urgent item. I think it's just a courtesy to the public to include them on the entire meeting, and because some of our closed sessions can take a while. And frankly, items 5 through 8 generally don't take long.
As it stands right now, board members, if the chair has the discretion as it stands right now in the resolution to reorder the items. And so you could create a new default and then give the chair the ability to reorder them as needed to meet the requirements.
That sounds like a good plan. Director Ruddock.
Yeah, so what the city does is we have our closed session before the regular meeting. So we often meet at 6 p.m. ahead of the 7 o'clock meeting to deal with closed session items, sometimes as early as 5:30. And that way we have the full, few hours to deal with the bigger issues and things that might, run over in time. So, we might consider a pre-meeting, for closed session.
That's what we do at GCSD also, and it's worked really well. Can we have feedback from everyone? Would you like to see that as a change to start closed session at 6?
I definitely like it at 6. I think it gives us more time for the regular meeting. And I think that that's a greater courtesy to the general public than to have us rushing to be done by 9 and feeling pushed.
I disagree. I find that I am often busy until about 6:45 and prefer not to have to rush what I'm doing.
Perhaps because we could bring this back and Kishan could talk to some of the board members and get various opinions on this. I'm just not sure that tonight this is something that we should really spend a lot of further time discussing. Director Reddick, do you still have your hand up? Did you want to speak again, or your hand's still up? Okay. Anyone else want to give feedback on this? I'm fine with 6 p.m. I can do that. How do others feel?
I'm kind of against it. I'm not a working person anymore, but I have to work during daylight, and if I've got to shut everything down at 5 o'clock to try to get dinner, start dinner at 4:30 to get ready so I can get cleaned up for a meeting. I'm happy the way it is. My fight's with Montera because Montera tries 7:30, and I fight that every year. So,
yeah, well, I think if the question ought to be, what serves the public more, and I think the 6 p.m. time serves the public more. Yes, we all have our lives and we want to, do our thing, but I think if we're concerned about serving the public, I think that should be the focus of the discussion, is how is the public best served?
I have a question. If it's closed session, the public isn't involved in closed session. And if the meeting were going to start at 7 anyway, how does that serve the public? I think it serves the convenience of some board members and not others.
Okay, well, Director Clark had his hand up.
And I will also say we have staff. How that serves the staff and consultants who are part of our closed session meetings.
Director Clark, did you have a comment?
I'd like to see a little more flexibility than setting it right at 6 every time, because the closed session items, we have 4 or 5 of them tonight, but often there are less. And so maybe we could start at 6:30 on those occasions.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would like to suggest that we bring this back with some options spelled out that we could all agree on, and then just decide which one and pass it at a subsequent meeting. Does that work?
Fine.
Then, be more straightforward. Which do we want? And then we could vote, we could discuss and then vote on the configuration, time configuration that we all think is the most suitable for the public and perhaps for our own lives. And flexible. Does that work for everyone? Does anyone object to that? So Kishan, can we bring this back to finalize at another meeting?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, moving on to regular business. Implementation of non-domestic waste source control program and resolution 2-94. Kishan, can you give us a staff report?
Sure. So the non-domestic waste source control program, I'll call it as NDWSCP as we move on further, because that's going to be referenced several times in our conversation. So we noticed that in the month of October last year, we had plant upsets, and we've been literally reporting it in in every other board meeting about the plant upsets or the status of the process at the plant, and therefore we hired Brown and Caldwell. We all know about it. We went to the presentation last month, and we also know their recommendations. One of the recommendations was to find out more from the collection system, to find out what's going on outside the plant, as well as some changes inside the plant. Now, to go back to history, SAM has had these problems way back in the 90s, and therefore they adopted the NDWSCP program. And a resolution was passed in 91, which was 1-91, and subsequently the 1-91 got amended with minor changes wherein they added a couple of points, and then it became 2-94. So the 2-94 was actually adopted by the board, and this has been cross-referenced by all the member agencies in their sewer ordinance. Now, for various reasons, the 2-94 permit, of course, was issued to a lot of establishments, but for various reasons, this has not been in implementation continuously. And whether it was a staff issue or not, we are not sure whether there was managers who were changing at that point of time or lack of staff. But then the permit itself was discontinued, but still the FOG program, which is the Fats, Oils, and Greases program, continues to be in place, which is also a part of NDWSCP program. It continues to be in place and going on. But new permits were not issued, and maybe they did not find it necessary at that point of time because the process was under control and they did not have adequate staff. But after the process upsets in October, when we began investigation, we found out that it is definitely mandatory that we keep tab on what's coming from outside into the plant, and therefore the source control program, NDWSCP program, need to be reintroduced. So discussion was held, and we did send out letters to certain establishments as a phase 1 of the NDWSCP program. And we had a workshop on August 30th. We sent out an application for the registration to all these establishments. And initially we gave them time until September 3rd. Subsequent to that, an extension was requested by the establishments, and we gave another 2 weeks of extension. And we have presently given time until September 18th. That's Friday, the September 18th, to complete the application and turn in the registration requirements to SAM. And therefore, SAM is proposing that since the NDWSCP program, NDWSCP program has already been adopted by the board, there were some discussions in the managers meeting to consider several options as to how it should be implemented. And that is being discussed tomorrow in the managers meeting, which will be brought back to the board in the next meeting. But however, in the interim period, SAM is continuing to perform the following actions. So one is we are going to proceed with the registration process, wherein we have asked the establishments to turn in their application forms on or before 17th September. Sorry, I think I mentioned 18, but it's 17th September. And after the registration information is received, an inspection of their facilities will be performed, and a sampling, the location will be determined, sampling will be done at each and every establishment. I would like to say that out of all the establishments that we sent out, we've already received the response from one of the establishments from Montana. They have turned in their application, given all the details. That was last week. So just to give you an idea about the sampling, we have received a quote for the sampling, and the sampling cost is approximately $1,000 per business. And that has been already furnished to the various establishments. You do not have to go with the vendor that has been provided. Just to give an indication, the establishments can perform the sampling at their will at a certified lab of their choice. And as I mentioned, SAM is also looking for direction from the member agencies, the managers meeting, which is held tomorrow. And we mentioned that if no action is taken or no direction is received, SAM will continue with the adopted resolution and move forward with the 2-94 version of the NDWSCP program. So staff is here to answer any questions. I have my consultants, and we are here to answer any questions or any public comments or anything from the board or anybody for that matter.
Just to emphasize that the agency managers want to have time to meet with each other and talk about the right way to implement this program. So other than the people whom you've already contacted, this program is not going to be implemented until after the agency managers meet and bring back a proposal to the board, correct?
Yeah, the agency managers are meeting to find out if there are other options other than following the 2-94 resolution. That is the purpose of the managers meeting.
Well, no, it's options of how to implement the 2-94.
Yeah, the 2-94 is very clear on how it's just to be implemented, whether any options are required other than the what changes are required in the 2-94 to pursue any options. Am I clear?
Well,
if there are any
some options about how it will be implemented that won't necessarily require changes. All right, I'm gonna go ask for initial comments from the board, and then we need to take comments from the public.
Perfect.
So we're not gonna, if it's all right, I think it would be better not to have our whole board level discussion right away. Let's ask questions from the board members, and then get comments from the public, and then we'll go into full board discussion of this matter.
Yeah,
so
I believe we have.
Everyone?
Sure, and I believe we have public comment, and I'd like to reiterate that the public comment is restricted to 3 minutes.
Okay, so let's just briefly, all right, I don't see any, oh, Catherine, you're the only board member with your hand raised. Do you want to take public comment first, or do you want to comment first?
I'd like to comment and say it's clear no vote is being asked for. And I think we should work to implement the program as soon as possible, because the regulatory boards are watching these meetings. Our permit is at risk, and any changes that would alter what's in the JPA would need to go through a whole JPA amendment. So I think that we need to take very conservative action and start implementing this program. We can always make changes later, but right now we need to get this up and running. I am very concerned about what the 7 years where we weren't doing this program could cost us. And so again, I like to demonstrate to the regulatory agencies that we're very serious about not having this happen again.
Okay, Director Ruddick, and then Director Lohman, and then.
So I want to hold most of my comments until after I hear from the public, but and I will have comments. And I do know that an agenda was circulated for this meeting that actually was suggesting the discussion would focus on 3 alternatives. And I don't think that discussion has taken place yet. So I'm not prepared to give staff direction tonight to pursue a SAM program. The point was for the member agencies to sit and discuss, for the member agency managers to confer with their boards. And that's the process I'm going to follow. I'm not going to be pushed because of fear. We're going to resolve this in a timely manner, but I'm not going to make a policy decision about it tonight. So I just wanted to take that up front.
That does leave the 6 or 7 businesses that have been, that they're proposing to handle before those conversations happen in a difficult position. Director Lohman.
No, I think the contracts that, Kishan mentioned are very clear about who's responsible. I'm perfectly willing to wait on serious decisions, and I think it's very appropriate for the managers to all get together tomorrow and talk about some alternatives, whatever they want to bring to the next meeting. I'm perfectly fine with that. So, we don't have to make any major decisions tonight. I don't think that's appropriate until we hear some more options.
Jeremy, did you want to interject here, and then Craig?
Yeah, just one quick clarification. I think I understand that there's a couple options that are going to be discussed, but the registration itself, I think that's something where Kishan was looking, since we've already started that process, and whatever option is selected, I think that's going to be needed because you're going to need the data as to what kinds of information is coming from those sources. And so I don't understand the board. I don't understand one of the options being to stop that from happening, but if I'm incorrect about that, I guess people can correct me.
Yeah, and the Chair, I would like to also mention that during the workshop, we had participants from all the most of the establishments, and we made it very clear what the registration process was. And I believe it was taken very well, and we got good feedback on the presentation on the workshop too.
All right, well, let's hear from representative of some of those businesses. Craig, do you want to speak?
Thank you, Chair Dai. I agree just to second what Kishan said. I think the workshop was great. I think it was very productive. Can you speak a little louder, Craig? It's hard to hear you. Sorry, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. I'd second what Kishan said. The workshop was really great. I think it was great to meet face-to-face with everybody, meet the TSA consulting guys. I've met Tim before, but it was great to meet the rest of the team. I thought it was really great and really productive. So I have a comment, and I wasn't expecting the three alternatives and the meetings, but Half Moon Bay Brewing Company, Hot Dogma Brewing Company, Jetty Wave Distillery, Half Moon Bay Distillery, and Blue Ocean Brewing Company have elected me to speak on their behalf in order to try and save time, because I know we're very mindful of that. And we have a few comments, and I think they're all very fair. My first one is that we do accept that this permitting program should be in place. We do not want to see problems going into the ocean, and we are on the same team that we don't want to see state oversight or state intervention. And we do believe that we should have a well-operating sewer authority. That said, 8 businesses cannot be the target of a single program that covered 96 businesses previously. And that only 8 businesses can be targeted means only one of those 8 people can ever be found guilty. And anybody else who was dumping or was responsible for these high BOD levels isn't found. And the problem's not fixed in the end anyway. We would like to see that it is applied equally to all businesses who are non-domestic wastewater discharges, not just the 8 of us. I have a list, and I can share my screen, of the businesses that had permits in 2014, and only one business, the brewery on Half Moon Bay, in this list of 96 is now being asked to renew their permit. That's my first point. My second point is that we were told, because we are classified as industrial, that we will be required to have this permit no matter what our BOD levels are. So it is a little disingenuous to ask us to do testing for the registration to see if we need the permit when we've already been told that no matter what the results are, we will be required to have a permit. The fee for the permit is supposed to be for testing. So we feel that we're being double dipped on the testing requirement. We're going to pay the $1,000 up front, and no matter what the results are, we're going to be required to get the permit. And then the fee for the permit, which we then have to pay afterwards, will also go towards testing. So we're going to be paying for the testing twice. If we already have to have the permit by the 94 resolution, which it says in page A15 that we do, then we should just get the permit and skip. We can do the registration form for the information in terms of chemicals on site and hazardous materials and what we discharge and what's taken away, but we shouldn't have to pay for testing twice. The fee is supposed to be for the testing. And the final point is that it's really encouraging to see that in August there have been 0 violations. We think Brown and Caldwell did an excellent report, and obviously the advice they've given and the work done at the plant has made tremendous steps in fixing this problem. And it's really great to see. I would like to see if this permit is implemented, especially if it goes out to all the businesses it should go out to, if we can try and hold some of that money in the authority and try and develop our own lab equipment and know-how so that we can do this testing in-house rather than paying $200,000 to $300,000 to consultants every 6 months to do it for us. That is the position of those businesses that I listed. Open to comment. Again, it was a really great workshop, and I really appreciate the team taking time to meet with us. Thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Comments on that? Kishan, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, thank you, Greg, for your feedback. Yes, I don't think I'm going to hold my comments till such time that we discuss on the process itself as to how we need to move forward with the rest of the establishments. And as we indicated, this is the phase 1 of the program. We're just not stopping at the 7 or 8 establishments that we've discussed with. We are moving forward, but this is the phase 1 program. Any program, when it involves so many establishments, need to be done in several phases. And it's just that we've selected these 8 establishments, and once we complete the application process, the registration process, of course, we will move on to the rest of the establishments. That's all, Chair.
Jeremy, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, just one quick clarification. And first of all, very, very good and constructive comments. Second, I was just going to say, with regard to automatically being designated industrial discharge, that's not necessarily the case. Although I will say that the way the rules are set up, most breweries, distilleries, and others who have the potential to discharge wastes from the manufacturing process of beverages would likely wind up classified as either industrial or some other category of non-domestic. And so I think in that sense, that's probably an accurate assessment.
I'm sorry, you cut out for a bit. Can you just repeat what you said at the end?
I would just say it's not automatically. It's just because you're in that category doesn't mean you're automatically in the program. For example, there is one winery that's shutting down operations and just is doing essentially only domestic. They're just flushing toilets, using sinks, things like that. They actually might not be required to obtain a permit, and probably wouldn't be. But others who are actually doing manufacturing and brewing and distilling and things like that, they all, in all likelihood, would be required to obtain a permit and have that implemented. The issue that this board needs to decide is, how are we going to carry out that implementation?
But we're not being asked to do that tonight. We're just being asked to postpone the discussion until the managers have a chance to meet and come up with proposals and bring them back to our boards, which is a really good next step. But in the meantime, without that direction from the board, you are going to be requiring that these selected businesses go ahead and do it without waiting for the process to be approved by the board, or the processes be followed. Director Clark, did you have your hand up? Did you want to speak?
Yes, I think particularly the establishments that have been issued the registration letters, and the public deserves some more clarity on what this means. I know it would make more sense to do this after the member agency managers get together, but the deadline is now 5 days away, the 18th. And so it costs you $1,000 approximately to get tested. Then what? Does that earn you a 5-year permit based on one test? Do these establishments, suppose they discover that they can do new treatment processes or change the way they operate, and they think that their BOD, for example, will go down? Can they come back in a year or in 3 and say, I want another test? And maybe their permit is modified?
What happens if their initial testing shows that they don't have high levels? They still had to pay the $1,000.
Right.
Right?
Yeah. I should have said that first. Yes.
Can you answer that question, Kishan?
Yes. It is the board's discretion then to decide if you would not want the establishments to pay the $1,000 up front, but a test is required to be done to determine. Somebody has to pay for it, either SAM or the discharger, but it's the board's discretion to decide whether the cost should be picked up by SAM or by the discharger.
Yeah.
And is that a one-time charge, or is this going to be a repeated charge?
It is going to be, let me explain it clearly to you guys. In order to get the permit, one has to do the sampling to determine what level they are. And once you get the permit, then the sampling will have to be done at the monitoring will have to be done at some predetermined intervals. So maybe it'll be a quarter, maybe it'll be 6 months, but that is yet to be decided. So at that point of time, the discharger will have to pay for the sampling again.
Yeah, section 4 of 2-94 talks about the monitoring, but any permit program absolutely is a critical component, has to have ongoing monitoring and sampling. Otherwise, the permit is of no real value. You have to be able to evaluate that.
So if this applied to all non-domestic dischargers, then every restaurant in the SAM area is going to have to pay $1,000 at least once a year, maybe multiple times a year?
Yeah, I mean, let me just put it in a different way, Chair Dai. Now, SAM is required to perform inspection at the plant to make sure that they are within the permit requirements for the Regional Water Quality Control Board. Are we asking Regional Water Quality Control Board to pick up the costs? No, the discharger has to pay for it. It is a similar situation.
Even if they are shown not to have any?
Correct. As long as you have the permit, you have to pay for the sampling costs.
Yeah. So is this going to apply? We don't know yet if this is going to apply. It did in the past applied to every non-domestic enterprise. So every restaurant in all of our communities are going to have to pay at least $1,000 a year, or plus the $350 plus the permit fee, $1,000 plus the permit fee is. So they're all going to have to pay $1,400 a year in the future. Is that what it would be?
I don't know whether it's going to be $1,400 or more. The $350 what you have picked up is something which was arrived at in 1994 or 2000, whatever.
So that's a minimum. It would be around $1,350 for every restaurant and business in our communities.
Yeah, we are yet to determine those costs, Chair Dai, so we haven't yet finalized anything on that front.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now, we're only talking about the registration process.
I see lots of hands. Let's go to the members of the public, and then we'll come back to the board. Michelle Weston, do you want to speak?
Yes, please. I'm just curious, Kishan, when are we going to get the results that we gave you almost 2 months ago that you said all of us are over 3,500 BOD? We'd like to get a copy of our results.
You can get it tomorrow. I thought I'd explained it to you guys at the workshop the other day that the samples which were taken from your establishment showed that it was beyond the capability of the instrument. So it was anywhere from 3,500 plus. It was the COD. So
right. So we would like a copy because we, as I told you before, we've done our own testing and the test results are coming back contradicting yours. So I think we need to get copies I think all of us would like copies. And then second question would be, like Barbara just asked, so you're saying $1,000 it's going to cost us. And so 90 times 1,000 is what you got, 90 people, 90 companies in the harbor here, or in your area. And you're saying all of us are going to pay 1,000 or at least 1,500. And then I see the attorney shaking his head saying that he's saying, yes, we're going to have to keep paying. So what is the answer? This $1,000, it was 300 at the workshop, and then it went up to 500. And then the attorney stood up and said it was going to be 1,000. You've given us 3 numbers in the matter of 12 days. And now it went up to 1,000 when we're paying 300 for a report from a certified, et cetera, the same person you're getting it from. I'm not sure where I just feel like we're having the wool pulled over our eyes right now. And I'm sorry if I sound frustrated, but we haven't gotten the results that you've given us that says we're over 3,500, which I don't think we are. And then second of all, when can we know the exact amount, and why has it gone from $300 to $1,000?
Now, there are too many questions, what you put forth, Michelle, but to answer it, the constituents which have been clearly indicated to you, those, just an indicative figure, we've given you $1,000 from a certified lab, but you are at liberty to go to any certified lab, and if you're able to get all those constituents checked for $350, it doesn't matter to us. What we want is just the results. That's all it is. You can get it done from any certified lab. Since you wanted, since the group at the workshop wanted an idea about how much it's going to cost, Sam went out and got a quotation on behalf of the establishments and just provided it for information. So it's not mandatory to go with that lab. You're at liberty to choose a certified lab of your choice at whatever price they quote.
But you have results that you haven't shared with them for specific to their businesses?
The result is only a one-day result, and that has been repeatedly. It is just a one day at their facility when they gave us samples after their cleaning. And at that point of time, there was no number to share because it went beyond the instrument limits.
Okay, so Catherine, then Craig, then Matthew, then Greg. You're on mute, Catherine.
I am so seldom quiet. I want to thank Craig for his comments. I think his points were on point. I read an article in USA Today about mortuaries in Texas that are not regulated by the state, and they're putting all kinds of stuff in the sewer system. And somebody brought it to the attention of one of the cities, and it is a non-domestic waste issue. A non-domestic waste is a federal issue. It has been part of the plant requirements to monitor it and take care of it since the plant was created in the 1980s. It's not anything new. We had a process ongoing for 20 years. I think that's where we need to start as we're ramping this up. I don't think I know it's not the intent of this board to go after just 7. But it's also important to have various kinds of businesses listed. A fast food restaurant is not going to have the same kind of flow into the system as a full service restaurant with higher solid waste going into it through their garbage disposals and so on. Each restaurant will probably, and at this time it's probably readily available information to see what kind of category or classification each of these businesses go into. And so it's going to take us a while, but I think we need to start with where we are and working with the entire business community, not just a few, to get this up and running to protect, as Craig said, our beaches and our oceans and frankly, our sewer lines. There's lots of stuff that goes on in those pipes. It's a whole little universe. So we have to be careful what we put into it. But I want to thank everybody who's here, who's listening to this, and I'm sure we're going to be working with you to get your opinion. And frankly, if you put down your questions in writing, it makes it much easier to address them later. I'm not saying don't say it tonight, but just follow up with a letter with your questions so we can be sure to answer all of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. All right, we're going to have Craig, then Matthew, then Greg.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick clarification that the $1,000 is a secondary fee. So that's our issue is the double dipping. The $1,000 is for testing, and then the permit fee is then it follows up. The permit fee then follows that up for more testing. That's the issue we have because the registration, the $1,000 for the registration testing, we've already been told that we have to get the permit anyway. So the $1,000 is supposed to go towards the registration to see if we need the permit. But as we've already been told, and it's written in the 94 resolution that we have to get it, then we should just get it and pay the single testing fee that comes with the permit fee. My second point is I know there needs to be a starting point, but starting with only 8 businesses, we could at least maybe start with all the industrial discharges, not just the breweries. I mean, why is the harbor not on that list? An operating marine and commercial harbor. There's at least all the industrial discharges, not just the breweries, distilleries, and wineries. Thank you.
Matthew.
Thank you. On who pays for what, I am really mystified here. We passed a budget that we're operating under now that anticipated $115,000 in non-domestic fees, and estimated permits would cost $45,000. So there's money left over. Last year's budget anticipated $150,000 in non-domestic fees, and the cost would be, for permit expenses, would be $133,000. I didn't go back all through every budget, but the year 2014, when to use the term in the staff report, that except for fog, the non-domestic program was halted. That budget anticipated $47,000 in income for non-domestic fees. There were no assessments shown of any firms, and there were no assessments to the any of the member agencies. So my question is, did that money come in? And if it did, where did it go?
Kishan, do you have an answer for that?
Yes, the money did come in. We stopped collecting money from the establishments a couple of years back. I think the last we collected was in 2017. But the money did come in from places like rocket farms, because we take care of their discharges, right? And we also have other agencies who come in and share their discharges right into the plant, so we get some revenue from there. So these are the things which we are talking of. And we also had, last time we had, till the month of October, we had leachate being discharged, and therefore we were collecting revenue as NDWSCP. So the money did not go anywhere. It was collected by SAM and utilized, and the audit clearly mentions where the money has gone in or where it has been spent.
Well, if the money's been coming in since the program was halted in 2014, and there was an anticipated surplus, and at least in the budgets I looked at, maybe SAM should consider paying for the upcoming testing.
I cannot comment on that. That is the board's decision to decide whether the testing needs to be paid by SAM or by the discharger. But I can tell you very clearly that the non-domestic waste source control program also talks of revenue which we get from things like rocket farms and other discharges. So this is a part of the NDWSCP program. We did not do the source control program.
Andrew's iPhone, could you please turn off your audio? All right. I guess Greg, and then David Westendorf, and then unless Jeremy, you needed to jump in here.
Yeah, I need to get the consultants also to share a little bit about their experiences. So when you get a chance, Chair Dai, I would like
all right,
Tim,
I'm just trying to take people as they raise their hands. So
sure.
Would it be more appropriate to bring them in now or to speak to Jeremy, or should we go ahead with a couple more public comments?
I can talk whenever, up to you.
Okay. Yeah. And Greg, and then David.
I think that was a good comment. I like Craig's comments about other businesses being covered by this program. But as a ratepayer, don't forget that we're headed to somewhere between $1 and $2 million in the cost of this adventure, and we still don't have, to my knowledge, a handle on what the ongoing operations cost increases are going to be because of the extra treatment that is being done. I also would comment that a permitting program takes some staff time, so I can see permit fees offsetting some of the costs for administering that program. I don't understand why the NWSCP program was ever halted. I'm not clear that we understand how the influent levels have occurred, which are outside the experience of a major national firm and taking instruments beyond their ability to measure it. I'm certainly willing to learn from what other districts have done to ensure the equity on this matter for all parties. But as a ratepayer, I'm concerned about that extreme increase in costs. It doesn't appear to be coming for residences. So I think something like this is an unfortunate cost of doing business in our ever fragile ecosystem. Thank you.
David Westendorf.
Hey, this is David Westendorf with Jetty Wave. I want to follow on a comment that I did not hear an answer that was posed to a question to Keyshawn. We seem to be lacking in transparency on these lab results. At least Jetty Wave, we've not received anything. We've gotten word of mouth, but we've not received anything official. And this begs the question of visibility and transparency to the constituent businesses, us being one of those. So I'd like to hear that answer, please.
I'm sorry, David. I thought at the workshop it was made very clear, but I can put it in the form of an email and send it to you tomorrow.
So for test results, you're going to send the specific results?
Specific for one test result, which we took as a sample on that particular date.
Okay, great. I think they want to see that.
Okay. And then I saw the following comment. It seems that this entire process lacks definition, and you're asking these 7-8 businesses to essentially agree to a series of fees, some of which have been approximated, some of which have been you can go at your leisure and find your own vendor. But it doesn't seem like there is an upper end definition to what our costs, what our liability, and what our ultimate commitments might be. We're being asked to sign forms now. We're being asked to agree to things, but without understanding what the full scope is. Keyshawn said, this is phase one. These 7 businesses have been targeted as phase one. We have no visibility, no transparency into what phases 2, et cetera, might be. And so there's a very realistic chance that there might not be any other businesses beyond these 7, in which case the entire cost what might be borne upon these 7. So I think that you'll find readily available partners in these 7 businesses, but we need to have transparency and very defined roles, responsibilities, costs, and legalese for what our participation requires.
Jeremy.
Shall I provide the legalese?
Then I have a comment.
Just a couple of.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good to hear these things. Just a couple quick comments. One, these types of programs, SAM is a bit of an anomaly because it's such a small plant, but these, if you went to other breweries and distilleries and industrial facilities, non-industrial facilities that have the potential to cause exceedances of BOD, COD, TSS, you'd see these kinds of programs in most wastewater treatment plants around the state. And so SAM's a bit out of the ordinary compared to other places. Most places have existing pretreatment programs that are pretty robustly enforced. One other clarification.
Against 7 businesses in their area or against all of them?
That's a question of scope. And I mean, that's something the board will have to struggle with as to what the proper scope is. But that was a decision made by Kishin and in consultation with Tim and Leo, who hopefully will have a chance to talk tonight about kind of where do you start from? You have to start somewhere, right? And so you wanted to start with the areas that are potentially, that at least there's a historic association between certain kinds of industries and BOD exceedances. But the board can decide how broad we need to go, but the non-domestic source control program, actually, it covers fog. There's actually a whole variety of different categories. The idea was just to try to get a start in the area that was most likely, it was potentially causing exceedances, and that's the reason behind starting with the group that we did start with, but it'll be up to the board how extensively and how broadly you want to expand it. I was just, one final clarification, that is, folks who are non-domestic dischargers are not ones who actually exceed a sample they take. It's ones that have the potential, based on the kinds of activities, to lead to exceedances of the different categories listed in 2-94. And so even if you don't on a particular day exceed it, if your type of industry is the type that's likely to lead to exceedances, then you would be classified under 2-94 as a non-domestic discharger. I'll add one additional point, and that is, it is illegal as a non-domestic discharger to discharge into the wastewater system. And so coming up with a program that works for everybody ultimately protects not just Sam, but also the people discharging into the system.
And I'd like to make a comment here, which is that I totally think we need to have this program in place. We voted to do it. I'm supportive of it. I also have a lot of confidence in our general managers to sit down and figure out a system to implement this that will be fair and will protect our plant from having things that upset it discharged into the waterways. At this point, my only reservation is the fact that these 7 businesses have been singled out for what are fairly significant penalties and a bit of unlimited potential liability for them and future costs that it just seems ahead. And I read through the whole ordinance today, and I tried to figure out, what a justification for jumping ahead with this, especially since our plants are doing well right now. I mean, I would be very comfortable if we gave them one more extension until we figured out exactly what the program looks like, especially since there's no upset right now. And we did it properly. I have lots of confidence in Kishan and Jeremy and all the consultants and everyone who's working on this to put together a program that will be functional, that will work. It'll work for everyone. The only issue right now is just piling on for these 7 businesses when we really don't know what the scope is of what we'll need. So that's my comment. If I go left to right, I go Matthew. Let me go to Rick Lohman and Debbie Ruddick, and then Matthew. You're muted.
What I would like to see eliminated is the part in Craig's comments where there's this potential for immediate double costing. You shouldn't be double penalized. That's pretty straightforward, and the managers can work out maybe the timing on that. My other comments are, you can't bring up 100 companies on day one. So I understand the concept of starting somewhere, but the brewery shouldn't be hit with any more fees than anybody else who's coming up the following month. So, the fees, I mean, you can't do 100 people at once. So you have to start somewhere. I understand that. But their fees should be absolutely no more than anybody else who's going to be coming up in the future. That's totally fair. I like the ideas of having different categories, some micro restaurant, versus, huge restaurants. Maybe they shouldn't pay the same fees and things like that. The managers maybe can work that out tomorrow.
Yes.
Come up with that program. But again, we can't do nothing. The contract says we have to do that. So it has to be done. We're facing millions of dollars in fees. If this thing explodes, the state could come in and just take over the whole thing. And then we have no voice in it anymore. So we have to do a program. The fees should be kept at the minimal possible that we can keep them to ensure that the safety of the community and the ocean and everything else that's been mentioned. The breweries, I don't feel, are being singled out other than this unending contract part. They need to have a specific, fee. If paying for the permit gives you a testing and you don't get charged twice, absolutely fine with that. They shouldn't be singled out to pay any more than anybody else is going to be paying when we bring everybody online. But you do have to start somewhere. You can't, we don't have the staff, or I like the idea of finding out what testing equipment costs. I certainly support the idea of they don't like our testing, go get your own testing. perfectly fine with all those suggestions. But we do have to start somewhere. We got the state ready to shut us down right now. So we need to make sure we can avoid that. Thanks.
I'm saying we should start with figuring out how to implement the program. Director Reddick or Debbie.
The big question for me is who should implement a non-domestic program? And I'm not persuaded at this time that it's Sam. We haven't done it in almost 7 years. And I'm guessing it's because, you know, the capacity to do it was not there at the time. You know, Half Moon Bay took over its fog testing because Sam wasn't doing, in our estimation, the fog testing that needed to be done. So I think the first decision that needs to be made is, are the individual collection agencies who really are best positioned to do source control, the best to, you know, take on this permitting? I understand from our engineer that the way it works is, you know, you set benchmarks for various uses, and then you implement, you know, your fog program to deal with the fats and grease, you know, grease traps like that. You inspect, but you don't test until a problem has been identified, you know, and scoped out. So I think the first question is who should be doing the non-domestic program? And frankly, you know, we're leaning toward the individual agencies, but I think that needs a lot more discussion among the agency managers. I understand the business's concern process so far as being, you know, undefined. And, you know, I think just to presume that Sam will ramp up this program again is going in the wrong direction. You know, we should use this hiatus to rescope who's doing what and who can do it most effectively and cost effectively. Who understands the permitting, who understands the business landscape, who interacts with business on a routine, you know, basis. That's usually, like in this case, my case, the city. So that's the discussion I'd like to see among the agency managers.
Well, that's what they're scheduled to talk about tomorrow.
Yes.
Yeah. That's their plan, is to really focus on that tomorrow and bring it back for our next board meeting after talking to all the subsidiary boards.
Yeah, and that was one of the three options. But I hear that the GM like saying, you know, no, we just have to get this program going, and I'm concerned about that. So I'd like the managers to be able to discuss tomorrow, you know, all options, and I would continue the discussion that we're having tonight and ease up for the time being on the businesses until this is sorted out. That's the only thing that's fair to them. You know, the idea of routine testing seems kind of crazy to us. You know, if you're not having a problem, you know, or there's no, you know, suspicion of a problem, the idea that you would spend all this money doing routine testing, you know, I get, you know, typical permit, there's monitoring requirements, but what does that consist of? And when do you do it? You know, so I think the business people are raising, you know, reasonable questions and concerns. And, you know, I don't think we want to put any onerous conditions on them until we sort this out.
I agree with that. And so you would support perhaps postponing their deadline once again?
Yes, I would.
At least till after our next meeting, when if the managers have a productive session, perhaps we will have a chance to really focus on getting the whole program implemented in a way that is good for staff and is good for, you know, all of our boards, and we all feel like we're doing what we can do.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't done it for, you know, for 7 years, and, you know, nothing has happened, you know, until now we see the BOD. So, you know, I don't think we have to rush to judgment at the moment, and I doubt the regional board is going to be retroactive in any case. So I would say, you know, give them another extension.
Okay. Well, okay. Kishan and then Matthew.
Yeah. I just want to clarify that as a role of a GM, I'm not there for pushing the program or getting it done ASAP. My intention was to just collect the data from the application But if the board decides that we hold on till then that's fine with us. I just want to mention that I think being more practical, once the managers discuss tomorrow, hopefully we arrive at a decision, then the managers need to take it back to the respective board and then bring it back to SAM board. So I don't think it would be possible for us to take any decision until the first meeting in October, which will be October 11th. So after that, we give the establishments a couple of days, maybe weeks or so. So maybe I would say October 15th or so, we can extend the application requirement. But in the meanwhile, I would like a decision or direction to be given to staff, whether we should continue with the sampling that we are doing at all these manholes outside the plant. It's costing us quite a lot of money. Should we stop? Because we wait until what we do for the NDWSCP program, and really whether we've got enough database to find out where what is coming from. So whether we should really go ahead and spend this amount of money on sampling that's costing a lot of money.
Well, in my opinion, that's really a decision that you should be making a recommendation to us about. But if you are comfortable with stopping it, I would say I would support that. Matthew, I'm sorry I left you hanging there a little bit, but do we want to? Do people want to comment on the question Kishan has just asked now, or shall we continue general discussion? Matthew, do you want to comment on what Kishan said and also raise any other comments you have?
Well, I don't think that the ongoing testing that has cost us a lot of money has been particularly illuminating. So continued constant testing, I wouldn't endorse. But I have another question, or I have another comment. And once again, I am really confused here. It says in the staff report that the non-domestic program was halted, except for FOG, in 2014. Since then, every budget apparently shows anticipated revenues for the non-domestic program, and the ones I checked showed a surplus, and Kishan has confirmed that that money did come in, and he named specifically Rocket Farms. So what has been going on? If there's no non-domestic program, why why does it show up in the budget? And why do you say now that for instance, Rocket Farms has been paying their fees and the cost of the program if it's been halted? It seems like it's been ongoing, but it's only been for some commercial activities. Is that the case?
I do not have the details of the budget in front of me, but I can tell you that it was discussed in the collections budget also at that point of time with the member agency managers as well as with the board, and said that we should go ahead and collect that amount, whatever it is, for the discharges which come from Rocket Farms and other establishments.
Well, it's also been stated that all the permits for the non-domestic have lapsed. Is that accurate?
It is accurate that we've stopped collecting permit fees since 2014.
Okay, I think we've had a lot of discussion. Would someone, I don't know if it would pass, but would someone like to make a motion that we extend the deadline until after our next meeting? And then we can just, depending on the status of our managers' meetings and where the amount of consultation they've had. And then we will take this up in more detail and look at the various alternatives based on recommendations from our managers and from the SAM staff, whose opinion we also value a lot.
So Chair, I thought you would give an opportunity for the consultants to share.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Their knowledge.
I'm sorry, I don't see any hands or anything raised.
No, I was talking on behalf of them. So.
Okay. Who would you like to have talk? Okay.
Jim Sudan.
Sure, I can discuss our experience. Leo and I have been retained by Kishan. We have both worked for Stone Brewing, 8th, 9th largest brewing manufacturer in the United States, craft brewing manufacturer in the United States. And we can tell you that pre-treatment programs like the one you're trying to implement are very common. I could say the $350 fee that Craig was referring to probably is to cover processing the permit and developing the permit. I can also tell you that the $1,000 fee that we estimated was a cost estimate from a certified lab that we provided to the alcoholic beverage producers at the meeting. And as Kishan stated, that cost is subject to whatever cost they can go out to and get, as long as it's lower. As long as it's a certified laboratory. I think one of the things that we'd like to point out is that the program includes is also an inspection of the facilities. We need to go in and understand what the manufacturing processes are and the abilities of those processes to deposit, high BOD, high loads to the wastewater system. And that's typical for alcoholic beverage producing facilities. They do produce high BOD loads and high TSS. I mean, much higher than the plant can handle on a normal basis if they were the only dischargers to the system. We believe that 294 is there to protect SAM, and it's a good vehicle to implement the permitting program. What is typical in the past is you go through the inspection, you take your test results, you define whether or not a permit is required. If it is, you develop that permit. So one of the things that I like to point out is an ongoing frequency with a permit is that you have to submit monthly reports, and you typically have to sample on a monthly basis. So it's not just a one-time deal. The industrial entity typically has to sample on a frequency as much as monthly. Maybe not
$1,000 a month?
Potentially. If it really defines, the first test will define the constituents that we would typically sample for on a monthly basis, and then they report. And what a municipal agency typically does is they charge surcharges for TSS, for BOD, to cover the expenses, the additional expenses at the wastewater treatment plant if the wastewater treatment plant can handle those loads. Now, it does not look, in this instance, that is not the case. And what typically happens is you have to implement pre-treatment programs. That means they have to segregate the high-strength waste at the manufacturing facility and take it to another place, such as a composting facility, some other location that can handle that high-strength waste. So that is typical for industrial dischargers and industrial dischargers.
And these are all aspects of what might be implemented once our general managers all meet together and figure out what their recommendation is going to be for implementing this, correct?
Yes.
Which is what is going to happen next.
Yes, Chair.
I wanted to ask Craig a question. How big are your companies related to Stone Pine?
Stone Brewing out of San Diego. Quick internet search. So their website says in 2019 they produced 391,000 barrels in 2019. That means they produce more in a single day in about 6 hours than we do all year.
Yeah,
so it's apples to oranges.
I might point out though, Craig and Chair Dye, that Stone Brewing also had several tap rooms. We also had to get industrial waste discharge permits for those tap rooms, where we had similar volumes likely and BOD concentrations discharged at our restaurants. So similar
to breweries.
That's correct.
So why are we not looking at the restaurants?
I think, Craig, we indicated that this is the first phase we're looking at, and in the next phases, we'd be looking at the rest of the industrial dischargers in multiple phases. I don't know that Kishan has the resources to, go out and permit 100 entities at one time.
All right. Well, I think the question here is, thank you very much. And I'm glad we have your expertise to help with this program. I think the only issue here is timing. I think we're all in agreement. We need a robust program. We need to understand this, but I mean, where I'm coming from is I feel like we should implement the program and we need to do it fast. We need to get our act together and make this happen. I have confidence in our general managers working with the SAM leadership to figure this out and come back to us and have a program. And then once there's a program, phase one can go after these entities that they think should be the first targets. But it just seems we're ahead of the game by trying to implement something that we don't know exactly what it's going to look like and who's going to be doing it before we've figured all those things out. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me, or if it seems to me that the easiest resolution here would be to extend their deadline for 2 weeks, and with the expectation that they will comply with a rigorous program once we figure out what it's going to look like and who's going to implement it. Does anybody agree with me or no? Director Reddick, are you just saying you agree? Catherine, did you want to speak to it? And Matthew's got a thumbs up too. So I got two people agreeing. So would someone like to make a motion?
I'd like to know what's going to happen in 2 weeks.
I would like to mention that 2 weeks is not going to get us anywhere. We would need to extend it until October 15th to be realistic, so that we can discuss it after the respective member agencies discuss it at their board or the council, and we bring it back to SAM board for implementation on October 11th. So
Move to continue until October 15th. Move to continue until October 15th.
Yes.
All right. Is there a second for that?
I'd like to second it with the comment that we're not going to resolve anything here tonight. We're in a circle loop. So we could sit here for another 5 hours and everybody say exactly the same things we've just said. Right. So I'll second Deborah's motion because we're not going to get anywhere. And getting some more input to the things, I don't necessarily think that attempting to rewrite the JPA is going to solve the problem, especially in the current conditions we're in right now. But we're not going to do anything tonight unless we get more information. So let's get the information so the managers can suggest a fair program for everybody that's proportional to the size of the entity, whatever they want to come up with. Let's listen to that. So I'm willing to delay it until then per the motion.
Is there any other comment on the motion?
Yes. I want to know specifically, before I can vote on this motion, what's going to be happening in 2 weeks. Why can't we start the permit process slowly with a few businesses and ramp up more? But at this point, putting it off for 2 weeks, we're not going to get this started, particularly because we're at the end of the year until Easter. And that's getting a little long in the tooth. So I'd like to know what we're going to tell the regulators as to why we're not making any progress. Small progress is better than no progress. And it will also help us to formulate what we're doing. If Keishan, and by the way, if you say we don't need the testing, I agree with you. I think that there's no point in continuing testing if you feel we have enough data. But I would like to see progress on this, but I want to know what can happen between now and October 15th.
Okay.
Yes.
We hear you. Anyone else want to make a comment?
Yeah, I would like to change them. I would like to recommend that the motion be changed to saying to put a hold on the source control program so that we don't incur any costs on consultants or whatever for that matter. That would be better rather than saying application process itself to move it to October 15th. So let's say we put a hold on the source control program until October 15th.
Well, does that mean the businesses have an extension to submit their paperwork and move forward?
Everything what SAM is doing with source control program, including FOG, we'll put it on hold because even that needs to be decided whether the member agencies will do it by themselves or whether SAM needs to do it. So there's so many things which should probably be decided in tomorrow's meeting and thereafter recommended to the respective boards or council. So it's best at this stage to put the entire NDWSCP program, which was adopted in 2-94, to be put on hold until October.
Implementation.
Wait. Don't.
Yeah.
You have a board resolution. You have a JPA agreement that requires that program. I wouldn't quite say put the whole program on hold. I'd just say hold off on any decisions regarding the implementation of the program until October 15th. How's that?
Perfect. Okay, that sounds good.
Yep.
So I hold off on the
Director
FAR
Reddick, do you
program. Hold off on the source control program.
Deborah Reddick, do you accept the change in the motion?
Please restate it.
Jeremy, what?
I would just say just a pause on the implementation of. We're not changing the existence of 2-94, the program. We're not eliminating the program. We're just saying we're going to hold off on any further steps on implementation of the program until after until October 11th, 15th, whatever the day was.
I want to make it clear that, we have not made a decision to cede that to SAM. We've already you've already delegated to us, management of our collection system, right? Our FOG program, which means that can be done. It can be delegated to us to do our own source control. So, I can't approve a motion that appears to cede that authority to SAM.
Can you restate your motion?
If Director Ruddock is forcing SAM to, if by definition changing the JPA in one statement, I withdraw my second.
We're asking.
That's not what we're discussing. We're not discussing releasing everything to the agencies.
We're continuing discussion until the general managers have a chance to discuss options and approaches.
And the boards.
Yes.
That's consistent with all current legal requirements. That's not a problem.
And I think that's okay, Rick. Are you okay with that?
I'll second that then.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Director Luck?
Yes.
Director Lohman?
Yes.
Director Clark?
You're muted, Matthew.
Director Clark? Director Penrose?
Yes.
Director Slater-Carter?
You're muted, Catherine.
You're muted, Catherine.
I say no. I think we need to keep making small steps towards this program. I am very concerned that we are all going to get stuck with even more increase in the penalties for this BOD problem. And so I'm trying to protect all the districts by asking us to move on and with this program and get it established so we aren't going over New Year's with this.
We'll put it off for a shorter time than that. Yes, continue. Thank you, Catherine. Yes. All right.
Motion passed.
Actually, I think valuable discussion, and I think we will in the meantime see our general managers working with Kishen and so forth to get this program in place. This is not a lack of confidence that the program is needed and that we have helped to implement it properly. It just says that we want to go ahead and figure out how it's going to be implemented before we start applying it to businesses.
We have 10 minutes.
On with the agenda. Thank you, everybody. Moving on to General Manager's report.
I have nothing to report.
Attorney's report.
I'm going to need a brief closed session. In fact, we have 2 brief closed sessions.
Okay,
whether we can get that done in 10 minutes or not, I guess we'll see.
I'm sorry, were you done? Are you done with?
My only comment was I'm not sure if we're gonna have enough time, but I think we can try without doing the extension of the.
All right, maybe we might need 10 minutes or something. Okay, director's reports. Anyone? All right. Topics for future board consideration. All right, and moving on to closed session. We have 13 minutes. So thank you everyone for attending our meeting. We're going to adjourn to closed session now, and thank you all for participating. I think we had a good discussion.
Thank you. That was great. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you.